Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ellis, and today I'm back with the opposition view. It's Everton against Burnley at Goodison Park. I'm joined by Joe from the Turfcast podcast. How you doing, Joe?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. How are you?
Good, yeah. He's a bit of a regular now, is Joe. It's the third time this season, and it's the third time this season Everton have played Burnley. And so far, we've come out on top both times. But will we do it again? Well, we're going to dive
Don't
into it
know, mate.
all and see if we will or not. How you doing, Joe? Do you think you're going to win? You got any hope?
Uh, Honestly, like obviously we're going into this one with probably more confidence than what you are. Like the
Yeah,
team, I think fans are a bit more realistic. I think the team, obviously, I don't know when you last won. I presume it was 2023. You're on your longest winless streak in the history of the
it was
club, or
against you,
ever
mate.
since you've been in the Premier League.
It was
Was it
against you.
actually?
Yeah.
Oh God. That's absolutely typical, man. That is so typical. 100%. The thing is, right, we're going, we are 100% playing better than what we were back then because you dismantled us twice in like the space of a month, especially the game at Good. Well, I think both games had spells to start with, but then as soon as you got on top, you were on top throughout. You clearly knew our weak points. You clearly knew we couldn't handle set pieces and headers and things like that. So I am a little bit worried because it's you and you highlighted our weak points, sorry, so easily so early in the season. And Dice loves playing against teams that we are now. Like he will happily just sit back and say, "You have the ball," because I know you can't do anything with it, which is fair, I think, on the basis of this season. And we'll just wait for you to make a mistake because we know you're going to make a mistake. And again, this season, that's pretty much all we've done is just make countless mistakes and just gift goals away. So I'm not expecting to win, but I don't think it'll be easy for you guys as the earlier two games were.
I'm not expecting it to be at all. It seems like you've almost resurrected in recent weeks, isn't it? That's now 4 games unbeaten. And from a point where everyone thought that Burnley were completely gone, suddenly you could say that maybe if you beat us on Saturday, you're back in it, really, aren't you? I think it got to a point on in midweek where if we got beat to Newcastle and if you'd have just held on against Wolves, then if you'd have then beat us on the Saturday, you'd have been 3 points off us and we might have another deduction coming. So surely that's a bit of hope for you that maybe it isn't over yet. Because last time we spoke, it was Burnley were pretty much gone and like no one really gave them a chance.
Yeah, but let's be fair. If we are back in it, we're back in it because of one reason, and that's the points deductions. Like a lot of people do keep saying to us, to me, because basically against Wolves, I weren't looking at you guys. Obviously, you're always going to look at it from your perspective. I'm not looking at Everton and what Everton do. I'm looking at what Forest do, what Luton do. They're the teams I'm looking at the minute. Obviously, Luton got beat yesterday when we were recording this. I expected him to get beat there though, but I didn't expect Forest to win and win so comfortably. So I left the turf on Tuesday being feeling very deflated because Forest had won. And then they went. I think we got the gap down to 4 points at one point, and then I remember thinking if Fulham beat Forest, and obviously we win against Wolves, that'll only be 1 point, so we are properly back in it here. But they obviously ended up winning, and we could only manage a draw. So now I think the gap is back to 6 points. I haven't actually bothered looking at the table again because I was that deflated. But yeah, like obviously if we go to Goodison and win now, yeah, like we are obviously back in it. Like we're not dead and buried, but it's probably do or die now. Like if you beat us again, I haven't got the league table up, so I don't know how many points away that'll put you if you do beat us. But I think if we go to Goodison on Saturday now, lose the game, I think that's us gone. But we do have a slight chance. If we beat you, that's obviously a massive 6 pointer. We'll bring you back into it. Hopefully Forest get beat. Hopefully Luton get beat. Sheffield United will probably get beat. I've not looked at who they've got, but they'll get beat tonight anyway, hopefully. Because they're playing obviously on Thursday night, the day we're recording this. So fingers crossed. So yeah, we're not dead, we're not buried. But if you had the extra 6 points that you had and Forest had the extra 4 points that they had, then we would be dead and buried. So we're back in it because of a slight pickup in form, but mainly due to the points deductions. But yeah, Saturday's massive for us, and we have to go there and we have to win. But knowing Dash, I think that will play into your hands.
Well, I think we have to win as well, though. So it's making for a very scary game for both sides. I think, really, we looked at this a few weeks ago as a game where we absolutely have to win. And the pressure's only built since. We're now winless in 13 games, which it's our worst record since 1957 for winless runs. And now we're looking at this game thinking, wow, we absolutely have to win this now. The Bournemouth game last weekend was a massive disappointment. Newcastle on Wednesday night picked us all up a little bit. First half was terrible, and then we just gradually grew into the game with around half an hour to go and managed to get that late penalty. But I think Evertonians look at this one thinking we have to win this just purely to end that winless run. We might also, if like you said, if you win, you just come back into it then. And we don't want to be dealing with many teams in this relegation battle. We want to put teams away. And if we win, we would
Yeah,
probably
sure.
go a long way to put you away, really. We're currently 7 points ahead of you. And with the points deduction, we don't know what that's going to be. That's the only uncontrollable. But we know that if we beat you, we can go 10 points clear before that deduction. So Everton need to win this. Everton need to finally just pull away from it because we should have by now. And I think points deductions, yes, the one has affected us so far. 6 points is far from ideal, but we've not won in 13. So if we'd have just won a couple of those games, we'd be well out of it. So I think Everton fans are also looking at the performances at the moment and aren't just pinning our whole season on the fact that we've had this deduction. So I'd say Evertonians aren't massively confident going into this game. Normally, when we need to win, we worry about it because we don't know whether we will or not. And you guys are obviously going to turn up, play your football, and just seeing this resurgence lately makes me a bit more nervous about it. But I want to know what company's done because you've come from nowhere to suddenly compete in games, and it's now four unbeaten. But what's changed?
Just a settled team mainly. Like the main one is Trafford being dropped. I'm not going to pull any punches. He's not been good enough as James Trafford this season. He's too young. I don't understand company through Mitchell so easily after such a good season last season because already he started the season last season in the Championship really badly. Like he were making mistakes pretty much every game. He were giving the ball away. But everyone was saying this is obviously how company wants him to play. He wants him to be a sweep keeper, so he's always on the edge of the 18-yard box, and he wants him to invite the press and play the passer so Burnley can then play around it. There are a few mistakes earlier in the season, last season. The one at home to Blackpool is the one that sticks out. We were winning, I think, either 3-1 or 2-0 at that point, and he gave the ball away there, scored and we ended up drawing at home to Blackpool, which were not ideal considering obviously they're Lancashire rivals. But he then grew as the season went on. And he became such a good goalkeeper, one of the best, if not the best in the Championship last season, just to then at the start of this season just be dropped at the drop of a hat. Yes, we spent a lot of money on Trafford, not up front, admittedly, but we spent a lot of money on Trafford. So I think it was a case of we have to play this guy, we have to play him. But then it comes to October, you can see already he's not good enough. He's made mistakes. He's clearly too weak. He's not coming for crosses. He's camped on his line. He can't pass the ball out like Muric can, and he just doesn't get dropped. And it ended up doing more harm than good, in my opinion, to his development. The fact that he was starting every week, he was getting pelters from the fans every week. Fans were chanting Muric and stuff. It's not ideal, and I didn't do it myself. But you could see that the fans were frustrated with Trafford and his constant mistakes. But then every now and then he'd have a good game, and everyone would be like, "See, he's actually quite good. We need to stick by him." Then you'd be like, "Okay, fair enough. Maybe a couple of games." Then he'd make a mistake again. There were so many mistakes. Like the goal we conceded at home to Luton probably was a foul, but I don't know why he's coming for that one in the first place. And if you are coming for that, you've got to be stronger. Then he messed up away at Wolves. The second goal we conceded away at West Ham were too soft. There's just so many points throughout the season. And there's been a lot of talk of why now? Why drop him now when he's been shite all season? And it turns out that he's played exactly 75% of games for Burnley this season. So there's some rumours that maybe there's something in his contract because there is a buyback clause with City at
Right.
like £60 million. So City probably have put something in there to say if you want us to buy him back for 60 million, he has to play a certain amount of games. But that's just me reading between the lines and a few rumours out there. But I think the main one is Muric. Muric has come in. He actually played at Goodison, to be fair, in the cup game, and I can't remember any of the goals really being his fault, but obviously you still managed to put three past us. But again, I think that was more down to the set pieces and the heading rather than the goalkeeper. But he's come in and he's done very well. His passing's better. You know, he actually comes for crosses. Probably could have done better for the Wolves goal, to be fair, on Saturday. Sorry, not Saturday, on Tuesday. His positioning weren't great. But with Muric, it's risk and reward. Like he's thinking about getting in a position to catch the ball because he knows where the players are going to be for the throw, for the quick fall, whereas Trafford has been camped on his line and they'd have probably scored anyway, to be fair. But another big one is Cullen. That Cullen was fantastic again for us in the Championship last season. And when we signed him, we were told that this guy's coming in from Anderlecht because he's played under company before and he can knit that company system together. He knows how it works. He's going to be that the brain and stuff in the middle of the pitch and just basically do the role that Jack Cork did for the last 3, 4 years. And again, last season, he was fantastic. Won the Championship Player of the Year, was obviously in the Championship Team of the Year, was absolutely brilliant. And yes, he had a slow start, but who didn't in that Burnley team? Like he were getting overrun, to be fair, in midfield. And then an accumulation of yellow cards, I think it was, meant he had to be dropped. But then he never fought his way back into the team. And companies recently started him again, which again took too long. That one's obviously there's no rumours there about contracts or anything. So company was just being stubborn. But now he's come in, and we've just got I actually looked at the side on Tuesday, and I said to my dad, I'm like, that's actually a good side. That we had Muric in there. Charlie Taylor at left back, who's probably getting on a bit, to be fair, but he's still solid. Then who did we have in defence? Dara O'Shea and Esteve. O'Shea's got a mistake in him, but he's getting better and better every week. And we had Vitinho at right back because of the suspension to Assignon. And then in the middle, you've got Sanderberg and Cullen, and that's a decent midfield, that in my opinion. Probably not top half Premier League, obviously, but I think both of them could play for, if we got relegated, for example, could play for a club like yourself. I think they both actually fit in perfectly in your midfield. You probably do have better midfielders, but they could play for a club like yourself or a team of that stature. And then on the wings, we have Odebear and JBL, and then up front we had. Well, actually, it was more of a 4-5-1 to be fair. But up front, we had Foster and Fofana as well. And individually, that's a good team. And I think we've finally settled on now a decent team. But I think that the two main changes are the fact that Muric has come back in and Cullen has come back in. But Assignon will be available for this weekend as well. Obviously, he missed the game against Wolves, but he's not changed much. Like everybody keeps saying, company needs to change his style. He hasn't. He's just finally settled on a good team, and now he's got a good goalkeeper and a good midfielder, and it's helped massively.
Well, with a system like that, you'd think that you need to have players who really know the patterns between each other, and you probably need a consistent team that play together often, don't you? And having that now might just be
Yeah,
the difference. And you named a few players there who they're exciting attackers as well. Obviously, Fofana's still very raw, and he has his on days and
yeah,
his
he
off
is.
days, doesn't he? Odebear's a young lad, isn't he? Talented player, of course. Good to see Lyle Foster back in the team as well. And maybe just having these players there now. Cullen, you said knitted it all together. I actually have a Burnley fan mate who was telling me last season how good Cullen was, and I was surprised not to see him in the team this year. But now you've explained it, maybe he is helping just to knit that all together. And you're going to come and just play your game, aren't you, at Goodison? You're going to play your own way like you have all season, and company won't change. We know that he won't. And to be fair to him, he's starting to get results for it. And whether that leads to them staying in the Premier League or not is another story. But the fact that he's stuck to his principles is fair enough to him, really. I would probably prefer a manager who'd actually adapt based on different games. But then the top managers at top teams don't adapt, do they? Just in a way stick to their own principles with minor tweaks for each game. So fair play to company, but whether he can come and get a result at Goodison is another story. We've only won 3 times at home this season, so he'll be confident, I think. But Everton will be looking at this thinking, this is the one we need to win. We've got a lot of good games left at home, and this is probably the best alongside with Sheffield United. So we need to start picking up points. And what on the Everton side of things, I'd say that set pieces are going to be the way that we get past you. We've barely scored from open play this season. It's like 15 goals, I think, from open play this season. And set pieces is what caught you out at Turf Moor this season. The way that we the way that we put two past you there, it was just like we really did look at Trafford as an issue, and we were just like, right, we're going to take
Yeah,
advantage of that. We made sure we did, and that's probably what we're going to do again. We don't really have loads of patterns of play. We don't look and go, this is the way that we're going to get through you every time. If I was to go on other channels and say, what's Everton's way of playing? I don't think I could fully pin it down yet, but we just know that we are strong from set pieces, but the whole defensive solidity notion that has been the thought of other fans in recent weeks hasn't really been the case in the last few months, to be honest. So if you come in and expecting Everton to be rock solid, I probably wouldn't expect that. We've not actually kept a clean sheet since January. So does that give you a bit more hope? What are you thinking about Everton at the moment?
pretty poor, let's be fair. But still a decent side, a good strong side. It just reminds me of, and it's going to obviously there's going to be comparisons, but it's the comparisons are so easy to make from Burnley under Dyche to Everton under Dyche because I'm looking at you and seeing the exact same thing. You don't really have any patterns of play. You will defend deep. And you will try and capitalise on set pieces, and that's exactly what you're doing now. And also with Dyche, you always go on hot and cold runs, and I feel like you've done the same this season. You started quite poorly, then you got the points deduction, and then all of a sudden you turn into Real Madrid. And then after you got enough points, you were just class for like what 2 months, and then you just proper fell off a cliff. And that is so Dyche that, and I don't know what it is about Dyche or his ways or his motivational skills, but he always went hot and cold like that with Burnley, and it seems like you're doing the same now. But I think it's I'm going to say a good time to play you, but it's you are obviously going to be low on confidence. But it's one of them. Like the longer this run goes on, the more of a thing it becomes, and the more likely you are to break it because there'll be more focus on it from you guys as well. I was kind of hoping, in a weird way, that you break it before now because I'm not really looking at Everton because I don't think they'll get pulled into it. But obviously, if you lose on Saturday and then like you said, you have got some decent home games, but you lose some of them, you will get dragged into it. But that's why I don't think you'll get dragged into it because of the fixtures you've got left at home. I know you just referenced us and Sheffield United in the same breath, but they are far worse than us. So if you don't
Yeah,
beat them,
true.
for example, even Brentford, like we've just beaten them at home. I know they've probably been a little bit stronger since then, drawing at home to United and they drew it at home to Brighton last night. Um, but yeah, you've got some winnable home games. It all depends on this deduction again. But looking at some of the deductions, obviously that we've seen so far, you got 6 for the first one, then Forest got 4. So you'll probably only be getting somewhere between 6 and 4, probably. I mean, you'll know more than me. But to get Burnley back into it, you're going to need a bit more than that. But obviously, win on Saturday and it just changed slightly. But I don't know. I remember Dyche said something famous about Everton. When they were manager of Burnley, saying they don't have a win in them, these lot. And I think that's kind of where you are at the minute. But I don't know. I think you're going to be so up for it on Saturday, and you'll know our weak points. But fingers crossed, you do think to yourselves, we'll capitalise on the goalkeeper because he's not the best at crosses, but he is a lot better than Trafford. So I would expect him to catch most of them. But like I said, Wolves did score from one on the latest game. So if you do pinpoint him, you might get a bit of success, but nowhere near as much success as you would have done against Trafford.
Yeah, I think we'd have rather have seen Trafford start than Muric, really. And the point you raised about Dyche being hot and cold, so interesting for Everton fans because we actually did go a point where had won 10 games in 14, which is just unbelievable, really. We haven't seen that as Everton fans in years. And then suddenly we go 13 without a win. And it's just baffling, really. You wonder why. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense because we have a consistent style of play, as in we play the same way every time, whether it's a recognized style
Yeah,
of play, I suppose, is another story, but we do play in the same manner most of the time. But it's weird how you can go from 10 wins in 14 to not winning in 13. And you seem to be putting us away from the relegation battle there. I think Everton fans might beg to differ a bit, and we are worried. We do feel like we're in a relegation battle. And when we find out this point deduction, that will really tell us exactly what we need to do. And
yeah,
I think that's what Everton fans need to know now. We want to know exactly where we're at and what we need to do to stay up. Of course, you just need to go into every game thinking you're going to win, but having that cloud over your head, thinking you could get another 4 here, you could get another 2 here. I imagine it wouldn't be more than 4, but there's more points to come probably. So that is something that just plays on the mind a bit. And I don't know whether it's affecting the players because it didn't really affect the players after we got the big deduction because we went on a massive run, but then it started to affect us a
yeah.
bit after that. So it's difficult at Everton at the moment. There's a lot going on, and for us, it's just about getting through this season. But this game, I think it's just a case of winning whatever fashion possible. We'll let you play, I imagine, and then from there, hoping we can. I hope we come out firing, really. I hope we have the high press. We really try and get at you when you're playing out from defence. And that's going to be the way that we're going to score, really. You might cut us open with a few passages of play. I think you'll be surprised by how open we can be at times. So there will be chances for you. But for Everton, it's just got to be play on that, start with an intensity, and we need to play differently at home. We need to find a way of really going at teams at home because at the moment there isn't a way of winning at home, and 4 out of our next 5 games are at home, so we have to start doing it. But as a Burnley fan, if you were to make your prediction for this game, would you back Burnley, or do you think Everton will finally get that win?
I'm actually going to sit on the fence. I think it'll be a draw. If I'm honest with you, I think it's going to be two teams that I think Burnley will go into it, like I said earlier, with more confidence than what Everton will, and we will try and play, and we will be better than what we were at the start. Well, I hope we are anyway. That from what we've seen the last month, we are better now than what we were when we played you at Goodison and when we played you at the Turf. In both of them games, I was at them both. We were conceded far too goals too easily. We just played right into your hands. And I think that was more of a company tactical thing more than anything else. But the players as well aren't the best in the air. But since then, we've brought in Esteve in defence. He was a January signing. He's better in the air than what all the other lads were. Dara O'Shea's got better. He's better in the air as well now than what he used to be. And we do have Muric in there. So yeah, I'm going to sit on the fence because I don't think either team's got a win in him at the moment. I know we recently won against Brentford, but we haven't then capitalised since then. Like, yes, we played Chelsea away, to be fair, so that was never really going to be a win. But we had the chances, so a more confident team with more quality would have won that match. Same against Wolves as well. That we actually were on the balance of play the better side overall. We just didn't have the quality to put the ball in the back of the net because like you said earlier, Fofana goes hot and cold. 1 minute he's sticking it in top bin from 35 yards at the London Stadium. Literally a week later, he's missing from 3 yards against Brentford. And he had one of them games yesterday against Wolves. Not yesterday, sorry, Tuesday. He wasn't great, to be fair. So we're going to need him to play better. We're going to need probably a tactical tweak because for the first time ever, we saw Fofana and Foster on the pitch, but Foster was put out wide and he's wasted there. If it was me, I'd play them both up front and have Foster line a little bit deeper. I think that would work. So I'm going to on the fence. I think it's a draw. I'm going to say 1-1. I was spot on against Chelsea. I said 2-2. I'm going to say 1-1 for this one. Like I said, both teams low on confidence. Both teams concede goals. And both teams, I think when it gets to like the 75th minute, unless the Goodison crowd roars Everton on, I think when it gets to the 75th minute, both teams are probably too scared of losing and will probably just accept the draw.
I think it's a must not lose for both teams, isn't it? But I think Everton fans, if we do draw, there will be a bit of fury at that because you would then think, when is this win going to come? You would look at if you can't beat Burnley, then it's Sheffield United's your only other option really to win, and because Brentford are obviously as good, if not better than you. We've got Nottingham Forest to come as well, and this is just one that we need to win. So I'm going to back us. I'm going to say 2-1 Everton. I think you'll score this time, which you haven't done this season, just because you've got a bit more about you and we're nowhere near as solid as we were before Christmas. I think you will score, but I think the Goodison crowd will just drag us over the line. We have got some like preparation, a bit of a march going on before the game with the 1878. So that might just drum the atmosphere up a bit as well. So hopefully Everton can finally get that win in 14 games. But before you go, Joe, got a few random questions for you. Is that all right?
Perfectly fine, mate. As I said earlier, I'm a regular on the show, so I'm aware of all the silly questions at the end.
You know all about it, mate. We'll start with some quick fire ones, okay? So predictions, I want your league winner. I want to know where Burnley are finishing, and I want your bottom three of the Premier League table.
League winner, I can't not back City. Even though the evidence is probably pointing more towards, and forgive me, Liverpool at the minute. I think if Liverpool don't get it over the line from the position that they're in, then I think that's pretty poor on their part. But I just think City will crank the pressure up like they do every single year. They've done it before. Sorry, I know you said quick fire. And then they'll eventually get them over the line. I think Burnley will fall short. I think we'll probably finish in the position that we're in now, 19th. I think the only way that we can finish 17th is if obviously we have to finish with Luton number one, and then yourselves get a points deduction. But all I want to be is within 3 points on Forest on the last day of the season because we have Forest on the last day of the season. So if we're 2 points away from them, for example, then obviously quick maths, you beat them, you go above them. But Chris Wood plays for them, so you just know for a fact if we're in that scenario, it's a bullet header and he's celebrating with his top off. And the bottom three, I don't think it's going to change, mate, to be honest with you. Sheffield United are dreadful. I know from the outside looking in, people say, well, they've been pretty much level with you all sitting up until now, so we're obviously dreadful as well, and we are. We're just nowhere near as bad as them. I think we are now we've settled on a team. We are currently the best of the bottom three because Luton are just in absolute free fall. They're probably still better than us defensively, but I don't think they're going to get out of it. But again, if you get X amount of points deducted, then that could be the only way that they stay above it. It's the unknown at the minute, but I think the bottom three will stay the same. The only way it won't stay the same is if you get like more points than you're expected and this run continues.
That's the sad thing about all this, though, isn't it, mate? The fact that we're both teams who are in that bottom four and looking at it thinking we don't actually know how this season could unfold. Of course, Everton are going to receive another points deduction, but then you've got appeals. Nottingham Forest are appealing their deduction. We might appeal ours. And
Exactly,
then
yeah,
the
yeah.
backstop date for that's a week after the season ends. So there's so much uncertainty all around. And I just hope for all of the clubs we can get it resolved soon and ensure that that last day of the season is the day when clubs know if they've gone down or not, because it would be a complete farce if
Yeah,
clubs were
it
to get
needs to be
relegated
like
after the
that. Yeah,
season ended. That'd just be madness, wouldn't it, really?
yeah. You
So
can't get relegated in a courtroom. It's bollocks.
that's it, mate. So before you go as well, we're going to go a bit more specific onto Burnley now. I want your best and worst moment as a Burnley fan ever.
Um, You know what? I think most people look at the fact that we won the league at Burnley last year and pinpoint that. But I think as you get older, it still matters to me a lot, obviously. And that's something I've already told my child about. I'll probably tell my grandkids about. Like, we won the league at Blackburn. That's just, it will never happen again.
Yeah.
But obviously, when I was 21, that's when we won at Wembley in 2009. And obviously, the only thing I'd going in my life at that point were Burnley. So probably that playoff push. There's just something about it. Like last season is my favorite ever season, but we won like we drew. No, we won 1-0 at home to Reading in the playoff semi final, but we finished fifth and Reading finished fourth, and they were going for automatics, and we never really were. They were so much better than us, but we just found a way to beat them. But we won 1-0. I think it were a penalty in the first game, but it was a really tight game, and then we had to go to the Madejskis, it was called then. And I remember thinking, like, oh, they'll just turn us over. They'll turn us over. Half time, it were 0-0. And then in the second half, around the 50th minute mark, something like that, don't know exactly the minutes, but Martin Patterson scored from about 45 yards out. Absolutely sensational goal. And I just remember, like, just going mad. And then about 5, 10 minutes later, we scored again, another great goal. I just remember, I have this weird memory of this match of just chanting as loud as I could about going to Wembley. I was like singing that K Sarah songs, chanting as loud as I could, I opened my eyes, and because I was shouting that much, I arched back, and all I could see was the roof. And I don't know why that memory's always stuck out, but I was like chanting and bellowing that much. And I remember looking at Reading fans, and they're all streaming out in 70th minute. So yeah, I think winning at Wembley and my favourite ever game would probably be that Reading game, but winning the league at Ewood Park last year and watching them like cry was absolutely superb. Last year, it's probably my favourite season as well. It's just a shame it's all come crumbling down this year, to be honest with you.
Have you got a worse moment then? Because that sounds incredible. Winning at Wembley, I've never seen it yet. I've seen us lose at Wembley, but I've not been there when we've won. What
Yeah.
was the worst moment for you?
Um. Yeah, it's hard because you block it all out, don't you? You just. I've never obviously watched highlights of bad games before. I remember the year we got relegated just 2 years ago. Again, probably because I'm in my 30s now and I was 34 then. I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm obviously gutted, but I'm not going to dwell on it. I remember going to the pub afterwards, and this guy there who's a couple of years older than me, with like tears in his eyes. I'm like, get a grip, Alan. Fucking hell. And afterwards, we were just having a few beers and having a laugh about it. But I think for me, like I grew up, and I don't want to go on about Blackburn a lot, but I grew up in the 90s when they were good. And then when I was starting to like become, a young adult at secondary school and stuff like they were in the Prem, we were in the Championship, and they were winning stuff. They won the Worthington Cup in like 2001. So I had to suffer them a lot. And I didn't see us beat them. Didn't even play against them until in the first time in my life until I was 12. And then they won at the Turf 2-0, and then they won at Ewood 5-0. But I was there. I remember it. I remember, that song, that one more time. They played that every time they scored. So
Oh
that
no.
song, I still hate it to this day. I still hate that song to this day. But I didn't see us beat Blackburn until I was 26. But I remember the year before we were winning at Ewood Park, we were winning 1-0. And I'm like, well, we're going to do it. We're actually going to. This, I say that the year before we actually beat them for the first time. I'm like, we're actually going to do it. We're going to beat Blackburn. I remember it into injury time. I was nervous. People around me could see how nervous I was. People get patting me, and I'm like, it's all right, mate. It's all right, mate. There's only 4 inches at a time. We'll be right. Proper thick Burnley accents. And then, lo and behold, ball breaks to David Dunn in the box, and he slots it home at like 90th minute, and then he celebrates in front of us. He was only fucking 6 yards offside as well, wasn't it? Absolute joke. So that's probably the lowest I've ever felt at a football match. I just couldn't believe it. Like, say for example, if that happens again next year, I won't be that bothered because I've seen us beat them loads of times now, and we've had the upper hand on them for so long. But yeah, the fact that we'd never beat them, and then they scored such a raggy goal that we're offside, and then they were all going mad. I remember thinking like, I might never actually see Burnley beat Blackburn here. Obviously, we've now absolutely bossed them, and we're on the longest unbeaten run between any sides in terms of the number of meetings ever in the history of this fixture. But yeah, that wasn't a nice moment, mate. I'll be honest.
I hope we can have some sort of something like that. I saw us beat Liverpool in 2010. That's the only time I've actually been there to see us win against Liverpool. And we were close last year with Connor Cody. Connor Cody scored a goal and it got disallowed, and he celebrated like mad, and he's a red as well. So the fact that he did that, but hopefully Everton can get
Yeah.
that point where we're so far ahead of them. We must be dreaming, but you must enjoy that now that Burnley are miles better than Blackburn. But on this game though. Hopefully Everton can get the win. You'll be hoping Burnley will win. It's massive for both teams, but thanks so much for coming on, Joe. You've been great.
Thanks for inviting me, mate. And I apologise. I know I like the sound of my own voice sometimes, and it's coming up its top left hand corner. Time's running out, so I do apologise, mate. I think that happens every time I come on. I come on this show, doesn't it? I need to learn to know when to shut up.
Don't worry, pal. It's been great. Regular guest now you are as well. But that is all for the opposition view today. Let us know your predictions in the comments. Is this Everton's time to finally get that win, put it all behind us, and go ahead in the rest of the season and stay in that Premier League? Let us know. Thank you very much for watching. See you later.